Dewalt DXV12P-QT Quiet Shop Vacuum.
Bruce, why are we whispering?
Oh, sorry, because the shop vac that we're reviewing is the quiet model. Wait, why are you whispering?
Well, I was just whispering because you were whispering.
Ah, sorry about that, Keith. I guess I just haven't adjusted to speaking normally again because the vacuum was so quiet.
Well, okay, I guess that makes sense. But is this shop vac really all that quiet, or are we talking about marketing stuff here?
Well, I think that the proof's going to be in the pudding, so to speak. Why don't we go ahead and jump into the driveway, and we're going to put this shop vac head to head against the 20-gallon Craftsman 6.5 horsepower shop vacuum that I already own, and we'll see how these two compare.
All right, direct and to the point. I like it. Let's do it.
Okay, so we are going to go ahead and conduct a bit of a comparison here. You'll notice I have two shop vacs, one in the box, one that is not. You might be wondering why I purchased another shop vac when I have a really a pretty competent one. If you go back and you watch the 8 days of Car Care Tech week that we did, you'll see that we use that vacuum for all of our cleanup work, that Craftsman. So why did I get the Dewalt DXV12P-QT? Well, the hint is in the QT for this model number. So this is a bit smaller, slightly less powerful, so it's a 5.5 horsepower unit. Smaller in terms of the size container that it has, but the trick it has up its sleeve is it's claims to be about 50% quieter than the comparable DeWalt model, and we'll see how it compares to our Craftsman. We're actually going to quickly unbox this, not going to spend a lot of time dabbling around with the unboxing part, and then we're going to quickly jump into vacuuming, and we're going to measure the sound output of both of these units. So I haven't decided if I'm going to keep this one in the garage and let it get as dirty as that one is, or if I'm going to keep this inside and use this more around in the house and maybe occasionally drag it out here if I want to use it or not. So let's go ahead and crack this open and see what we've got inside, and then we are going to very quickly put it to the test against our Craftsman 6.5 horsepower unit. Obviously it does have a larger container, but I've never really had a problem with how much that holds. It really holds more than I need it to, and so this unit is probably going to be more than fine in terms of holding enough debris. It's probably a good idea to empty that from time to time. So this is actually a storage bin for your accessories on the side, and it just hangs on the unit. We've got the instructions, and we do have some tools. This is actually a nice large brushed sweeper attachment, so that's a pretty nice unit. It's actually much nicer than the one that came with my Craftsman. And I'm going to pull some of these extension tubes out and lay them here. There we go. And there's a handle on top, and that actually is super nice. Now, I've watched an unboxing video of this unit before, and I do know that the additional accessories that go on, like the casters, they are stored inside the canister itself. The box is now empty. Okay, so our latch mechanism's on the side here, so we can pull that and lift the top off. It does have the pleated filter. This is a wet-dry vac. So we have another attachment inside of here. We'll put that in there. Here is one of the casters and the mount for that. And this is actually, I believe, one of the handles, the handle mounts. So the top is where this bin is going to connect in at. Here is an angled hose connection. The hose itself, I believe the hose is 7 feet. I know a lot of people like to replace the hose with a longer one. There are some units that you can get that will fit that. Also, this is not terribly crush proof and kink proof, so that's one of the things that I have seen mentioned online, that that could be a little bit better. It does have some screws for putting the attachments on. The other handle mount. Here is a fine crevice tool, and it does come with a bag, paper bag, if you want to use that in the unit. And that's it. So I'm going to probably just do this off camera, get these casters installed. There are screws to hold those in, as well as putting on the side handles. I don't think there's anything we consider rocket science involved in this process, and then we'll go ahead and jump into vacuuming. I'm going to use each unit with its native hose and with this attachment that came with the Dewalt. So try and keep things as even as possible. So each one is using its native hose to the base unit, and then we're using the same attachment. I have got a sound meter that I am going to record the sound levels from doing the vacuuming. I'm not necessarily going to spend a lot of time looking at how good a job they do vacuuming. I think they're going to be relatively close to the same. This obviously has 6.5 horsepower versus 5.5. I've seen some other reviews that really show the differentiation between those two is probably fairly minimal in the grand scheme of things. Again, I am going to remain quiet while I'm vacuuming. The only sound is going to be from the vacuum cleaner, and I'm going to place the sound meter, my phone, on the vacuum cleaner itself. I will do that with the Dewalt as well, so we can hear the noise coming from the vacuum cleaner. I'm going to restart this so I can save the history. I'm going to place it over here, and then we're going to go ahead and start it. So I showed the sound meter getting up to 89 decibels according to the sound meter. So that is the reading that I got. Let's go ahead and switch over to the Dewalt and see what we get there. Attachment, same sound meter. See how these two compare. So Keith, after seeing it, what are your thoughts on the unit? Considerably quieter or just marketing?
You know, I have to admit, it really was much quieter. Now, this claim for 50% quieter, that seems a little bit dubious because they don't really state what they're comparing it to. 50% quieter than what? And actually, there are ways to quantify that in terms of loudness with zones and other different metrics. But regardless, we would have to compare it to something. So that part of it does seem dubious. But had we had this DeWalt car vac, or shop vac, I guess you would call it, while we were doing the Car Care Tech Week, we definitely could have been talking while we were doing the vacuuming, which would have been nice.
Absolutely. So the minute I turned that thing on, I could tell it was much, much quieter without the need of, a dB meter to show it empirically.
Yeah, and frankly, if you noticed it, if it was obvious to your ear that it was definitely quieter, it probably was 50% quieter than your old Craftsman 6.5 horsepower, at least. Because decibels are weird, especially for sound levels. It's not really linear. Just a drop of 2 dB is going to be at least 50%, right? But yeah, so it's definitely quiet, but let's talk about the cleaning power. I mean, you said on the video you were going to focus less on the power and more on the sound level, but you have to have a bit of a feel for that at this point, right?
For sure, Keith. I would say that the DeWalt was fairly similar to the Craftsman, the 6.5 horsepower Craftsman versus the 5.5 horsepower DeWalt. Now, full disclosure, I did not clean out the Craftsman filter prior to conducting my tests, and the DeWalt filter was brand new. So while I was using the DeWalt, I would say that the horsepower was more than adequate. Was it the same as, the 6.5 horsepower Craftsman with a brand new filter? I'm willing to concede that, it likely could be, higher suction on the Craftsman. It really comes down to, do you need that extra horsepower to get the job done? And I think for most people, it would probably suffice to not have it. The DeWalt would be plenty of power.
Yeah, fair enough. So let's talk about likes and dislikes.
So I love the sound level, obviously, but as well, I really like the top handle. So I found it considerably easier to lug around when I needed to, especially lifting up the DeWalt versus the Craftsman. The DeWalt just wasn't nearly as girthy.
Girthy. Yeah, kind of like that. I like that word. But yeah, I see what you mean. I mean, if I had to lift that Craftsman and, spread my arms out wide to lift up that 20-gallon squatty wide tank, probably blow my back out. So I'm feeling you. I like that.
Exactly, Keith. It's just a better form factor for me. The tall and skinny and lighter. It is lighter than the Craftsman. I may not have mentioned that. So some things that I don't care for quite as much. I like the tool storage on the Craftsman much better. So on the casters, they've got little holders for some of the extension tubes or even some of the attachments that go in. It just seems to be, maybe a little bit easier to keep all of the attachments you want to use in plain sight versus, that pouch. It's kind of a free-for-all. You just dump all your attachments into that pouch there. I think the pouch could be, perhaps a little bit, wider and then certainly deeper. So I don't know if it shows real well on the video or not, but, those hard extension tubes, the two that it comes with, they stick way out of that pouch. It'd be nice if they could just slide down in that a little bit deeper and be a little bit more contained. I'm kind of worried one of them might flip out of there. Might be nice too if that pouch perhaps had some dividers, so you can kind of keep those tools organized a little bit better and you could grab them, maybe a little bit faster because you could see them in those separate compartmentalized containers for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it does look like what you were saying, that those long extension tubes barely fit and that you just kind of have to dump all your stuff in that bag all willy-nilly like Santa Claus or something. So yeah, I'm getting what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay, moment of truth. So the items that you don't like about this shop vac unit, are they enough for you to not recommend it?
No, not really. And I actually hadn't even mentioned the fact that they make 3 different types of filters to put on this unit. It only comes with the standard filter, which is going to filter down to 5 microns. But they have a kind of middle ground unit that's going to give you 1 micron. And then they have what they refer to as a HEPA filter that is going to filter down to 0.3 microns. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of, if you're going to be working with some fine material, you've got some options there.
Yeah, that sounds super handy. I could see use cases like drywall or, whatever, sawdust, real fine particles, where that would be huge or rather small. The particles would be small, I guess. I like it.
Yeah, I knew what you were, getting at, the large and the small. So, I think this is probably as good a place as any to wrap things up.
Yeah, I agree. So, in summary, Bruce likes this unit, even though it's not perfect, but it is worth buying in his opinion.
Wow, not only did you wrap things up, but you also put a bow on it.
Yeah, I do aim to please, and if you viewers aim to please go ahead and hit that like button. After all, you're still here. It's worth it now.
Yes, while you're down there clicking the like button, the subscribe button isn't that far away. Just saying.
Yeah, and don't forget the bell.
Speaking of bells, I think I hear the episode dissipation bell ringing right now. So, for Keith and Bruce, you'll see us on the next episode of Dad's Talk Tech.